Gang, for over a year now, I've been talking about True Hemp Science full spectrum CBD oils and how they've reduced my anxiety and helped me get better sleep without waking up feeling foggy and confused. I've also talked about the full spectrum CBD bombs that relieved my hand pain last year and made playing piano and guitar much easier. Well, gang, today I'm going to tell you about True Hemp Science organic gummies made with full spectrum hemp oil that are available now. They come in two different gauges. There are 50 milligram ones that have 50 milligrams of CBD and 1.5 milligrams of THC. Then there are ones that are 100 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of THC. Absolutely delicious lemon lime / orange flavors and also watermelon black cherry flavors. Super, super delicious. Now, they also have a complete line of full spectrum CBD products, including oils, tinctures, skincare lotions, sports rubs, chocolates, gummies, all kinds of stuff. Well, gang, How Did I Get Here has teamed up with True Hemp Science to bring you a very special offer that benefits all of us. Spend $100 or more at truehempscience.com and you will get a free gift. Just enter the code HDIGH at checkout. There's a little code placed there for you to enter it, HDIGH, and you will get a free gift with purchase. That's right. Go to truehempscience.com and balance your body and mind with True Hemp Science. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host,
Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had a good weekend. If you celebrate Easter, hope you had a good Easter weekend. I had a really good Easter weekend, gang. I spent Good Friday on stage with my dear friends in Skyrocket, playing at Last Concert Cafe in Houston. It was really, really fun, man. It was raining and it was cold, but the people came out, man. They came out. Damn, man, I want to thank everyone for coming out. That was just a really fun show. And it was one of those shows where we came out and put the pedal to the metal, and the crowd put the pedal to the metal. We were firing on all cylinders. Our sound lady, Catherine, was firing on all cylinders. The crowd was firing on all cylinders. And for 2.5 hours, we just communed in this, like, my favorite way. What sort of, like, feeds my spiritual soul. Yeah, communing in music. Yeah, there you go. Whoa. Then Saturday, we played a wedding here in Austin. That was cool. Those are kind of uneventful. After you have these magical, like, crescendo shows where people have paid money to come see you and they're coming out in the rain and the cold. Last Concert Cafe, while it has a roof on it, it's still outside. So the elements were still happening, but the people were under the tent just living the dream. And so were we. But Saturday here in Austin, it's a little mellower at a wedding. The energy changes a little bit and you realize, hey, this is more of like a job, a utilitarian sort of thing. We're here to provide some dance music for the people at the wedding reception. And then Sunday, Easter Sunday, I spent in the studio with my dear friend Poet Hawkins as he finished up his recordings for Austin Music Foundation's Artist Development Program recordings. These should be dropping soon. I'll be having Poet on the show again soon. He's an amazing artist. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Poet Hawkins. Look him up on Spotify. Look him up on whatever music thing you listen to. He's only got a couple songs out, but they're fucking great. And he's going to have a couple more coming out. Produced by Frenchie Smith, my dear friend Einar Peterson over there at The Bubble. We were just doing the last overdubs. I really didn't do anything, but I did get to hear all the stuff that I did do and the stuff that we did. And I got to write these songs with them. And so that was really, really, really fun. Go check out Poet Hawkins. He's amazing. Gang, I have a great show for you guys today. I'm so excited to bring this show to you, gang. The incredible Robert Ellis is my guest today on the show. His brand new album, Yesterday's News, drops on May 19th. This album is incredible. And if you follow Robert Ellis, which I'm sure a lot of you guys do, his last record, Texas Piano Man, which came out in 2019, had a bunch of singles. It had this energy to it. It was very exciting. He was wearing a white suit. He was playing the piano. He was jumping up and spraying Topo Chico all over people. Well, Robert Ellis, since the pandemic, has sort of like taken a left turn and sort of realized what's important to him in his life, be it his family, his wife, his kids. And he moved to Fort Worth, partnered in an incredible studio called Niles City Sound Studio. Started producing some bands out of there, doing his own work out of there. He's starting to build a venue. And musically, he also changed. And while all the records that he's made for a long time have been so exciting, he left his label, he left his management, and he decided to go back to what he really, really, really is attracted to. And that's like a sort of like Nick Drake, Richard Thompson, like very stark, melancholy record. And that's what he's made. This record, Yesterday's News, is incredible. It's really different than all of his other records, as all of his records are pretty different from each other, even from song to song. We have a great talk about that. Anyway, I took a deep dive into Robert Ellis for like 5 days and just went through all of his music, watched all these videos of him. He's just an incredible artist. I was so excited to talk to him and so excited to really meet him. I know we've seen each other around over the years when he lived in Austin, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. But it was really exciting to meet him. If you were here during South by Southwest, you know he played some shows, like he and St. Vincent did a thing over here at the Long Center, and he was running around doing all of his stuff, promoting the record. But this record, Yesterday's News, is absolutely gorgeous. It's just him on guitar and singing around one microphone with a guy playing stand-up bass. And it's very stark. It's very mellow. It's very like, it's like what you can achieve once you've been doing music for a long time. You don't have to get up and scream and yell. You don't have to jump around. You can just sit down and very calmly convey your message in the most beautiful way. We have a really great conversation. I'm so excited to bring this to you guys that I'm going to actually shut up. Without further ado, this is me and Robert Ellis chatting it up. Let's get down.
I gave it a go, and shot for the moon.
Let me just lock up this fucking safe.
This is the best. The best thing is that you're doing all this stuff, and the end of it is, let me just lock up this safe. I'm like, yes. I've never, in my like 1,200 episodes of this, nobody has ever locked up a safe during the show.
Well, okay. How's this? Mm-hmm. There we go. Let me make sure there's no important stuff here. I'm in my office I own a bar.
What bar?
So it's just brand new. So as of like this last month, me and a couple partners took over this bar in Fort Worth that used to be called Shipping and Receiving, is now currently called Distribution, and in 3 to 4 months will be renamed and rebranded. And it's a concert venue and going to be like a hi-fi vinyl bar.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I've been very busy. I've also been touring, playing music, doing all that shit. You're about to
release a record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That part of my life, I call it my vanity career. You know, the solo Robert Ellis music. That part of my life has been taking a real just priority hit lately because of all the other stuff I have going on. So, yeah. Yes, I am about to release a record, but every time I think about it, I'm like, fuck, I need to do so many things for that.
Yeah. So, what was the place? I used to play there in the early 90s at the Aardvark. That was a place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've only been in Fort Worth now for 3 years. We moved here right at the top of the pandemic.
Why Fort Worth?
Well, lots of reasons. I was living in Austin and, you know, playing gigs and doing some like random like consulting work. I do some work for brands and like music adjacent stuff, all music related, but like some other things. And I was getting ready to plan all these events for South by Southwest. And then obviously the shit hit the fan and they were like, we're not doing South by. Actually, music is canceled. All music is canceled.
Right.
So I was just in this weird predicament where like, I feel like I kind of heard / believed in the whole thing pretty early on, like as early as January, February. I was like, oh, this is about to be fucking real. We're not going to have a job in a few months and it could last for a couple years.
Can I ask you real quick? Can I ask you just what gave you that insight?
Well, I was working for a liquor company at the time that had like huge liquor company with like headquarters in New York and all over the world. And some of these early calls while we were planning for South by were like, it's probably not going to happen. And this is well before South by actually canceled. And I just felt like the temperature in that world was like a little panicked, maybe before the general population was.
Wow.
Because I think they just kind of knew.
Yeah.
We needed to start preparing for like all of this money and energy to not be spent.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got one. I had one kid at the time, but now I have two, and I was in kind of full panic mode. Like, okay, I need to figure some shit out. I was 30 years old and had never bought a house and just really had no financial stability. We were living in Clarksville, and it was really beautiful and wonderful. I loved it there, but my rent was pretty high.
Super high,
and,
yeah.
I started looking in Austin that year to buy something, and like there was nothing even remotely affordable. And then right around the same time, my buddy Josh Block called me, and he has a studio here called Nile City Sound. And he just was like, man, if you ever want to come to Fort Worth, I'd love for you to partner in this thing with me. Because I had been driving up here to produce records with him, and I made my last record, Texas Piano Man, here. And it's just a beautiful studio, like right on the south side of Fort Worth. And it just kind of everything fell together at once. And I was like, fuck it, let me look at some houses. And sure enough, like the real estate market here was awesome. And we, for a very small amount of money compared to Austin, were able to be pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, literally my wife is like, you're crazy. I woke up one morning and was like, let's move to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And she had never spent more than a couple days here. So
right.
We drove that weekend to look at the first house that we found on Zillow or whatever.
Right.
And we ended up putting an offer on it, and it was all very fast. We just got the hell out of there. Yeah.
Wow, man. And she's a filmmaker, is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
She did the video for yesterday's news, right?
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's badass.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
That video, like, you have to definitely be part of your life to film that, like, all the places you were.
That was so crazy. I mean, we didn't intend for that to be a music video. We, over the course of, like, 6 years, me and her were working on a short film together that was supposed to be about just, like, kind of life on the road. Sort of the backstory is we had this idea, why don't we, all the time that I'm traveling and we're apart, why don't we just set up this like Google phone number that will record all of our conversations? And like the idea being that we would start just like talking to each other like you do on the road and forget that it was recording. And then after a few years, we'd be able to go back through these calls and like piece together a narrative that's based on our real experience. And then obviously the companion footage for that was like, you're going to come on, a majority of the tours that I'm doing and film as much as you can and just be there the whole time. So she went with me to Japan and all over the States,
Vegas.
For like 5 years. And then, we put together this short film and it was pretty cool, but both of us were pretty busy and it just never honestly was like, when something is like, you work really hard on it and it's good, but it's not like exciting. And by the time it gets finished, you're kind of like over it already.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what happened. So we just sort of tabled it. It sat on a hard drive somewhere, all that footage. And then like 6 months ago, I was like, I really need to do a video for yesterday's news. And she's like, well, we've got all this footage. Let me start digging through it. And that footage was so much more appropriate for this song and this video and the concept. Like, it all just fit together, and I do think it was sort of like meant to be that we held on to all that stuff, and it served a real purpose, not some shit short film.
That no one will ever see.
No one will ever see. Yeah.
What else is she? Is she an actual like feature length filmmaker? What is her?
Yeah, so she's working on her first feature right now.
Oh wow.
And she made a short film that's a proof of concept. And she's leaving Wednesday. to go to a job, and then she heads straight to Florida because she's in Florida Film Festival and then the Naples Film Fest right after that. And she's kind of doing a tour of festivals over the next few months. And she's fundraising to make the feature.
Wow.
And she had a crazy life. The feature is about her dad, who is this, he's no longer alive, but he was this awesome fucking, kind of wild Jewish Florida guy who adopted Erica when she was like, a 6-year-old. And he raised her, as his own. She took his last name. And in her early 20s, he was just kind of a wild man, a bit of a drug addict and partier. And, he had like a hip replacement surgery, and he just didn't want to do the shit that you're supposed to do to get better after the operation.
Right.
And so he basically checked himself into hospice and is like, fuck it, it's my time. And so he died in her early 20s, sort of by his own hands. But he spent like a week at least in hospice, like fully coherent. And all of these crazy people started showing up in this hospice facility that Erica didn't know. Like, turns out he was engaged to multiple women and all his ex-wives and this whole extended family and friends. And like, in the last week of this guy's life, Erica got to like meet all of these people and just get this crazy dimension about her, her dad, that she never had before. And so that's what the movie's about.
Wow. Shit, that is awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I never got to meet him, but to her telling, we would have been very good friends. We're very much alike. Which sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. Where would I have seen you play then when we were talking earlier and we were like, oh, let's save it for the podcast?
Okay, so here I don't know you, but I know your name because when I was like 17, 18 years old, I did my very first record, just like self-funded. I recorded with my friend Sean Jones, who was in that band, The Lovely Sparrows.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
And Jonas
was in that band. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jonas mixed the record. And I remember from being that age, hearing your name and just, I don't know that we ever met, but your name was always kind of kicking around in my head, and this is like, I'm 35, so 15 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if we ever actually crossed paths, but certainly we've been in the same room somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe Momo's? Were you ever there?
I don't think I've ever been to Momo's.
Oh. It's long gone. It became a place like I went there after it closed, and it was one of those weird Austin things where you're like, well, let me go see what happened in this place. And you go there. There's a fucking hot tub on the roof there. Like it's a weird hot tub club. Whatever that is.
It's a biscuit. It's a brunch biscuit bar with sushi that has a hot tub.
Yeah. It's creepy. Yeah, just nothing. You just don't want to touch anything. Dude, I doing this deep dive into your music. First of all, this record, Yesterday's News, is amazing, and I'm like a Nick Drake fan. It reminded me to go back and listen because I went through a Nick Drake phase in the 90s, if that makes sense. Like somebody, they re-released some records of his, like on Ryko Disc or something, I think was the thing. And then I ended up getting hip to it from somebody and like really getting into it. But like, man, there was a thing in the press release for this that you were saying that it's a record for nighttime. But to me, it's like, I have like this Sunday morning music listening thing that ends with Sly and the Family Stone, but it starts in like a very stark, mellow place. And this to me is like the first record you put on Sunday morning to just kind of like ease into it.
To me, I'm the same way, but it's like, it's twilight. It's not necessarily night. Yeah. It's like either side of the day. Like I wake up, like I said, I have 2 kids. So generally my morning starts at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I like wake up and have coffee before the house is all fucking insane.
Yeah.
And I listen to pretty chill music, and then same at the end of the day. Like after my wife has gone to sleep, I tend to sit up a little longer and with headphones on, listen to music. And I generally fall asleep to either music or a podcast. And I just have found that it's a very particular type of music that works in those environments. And it's kind of my favorite, maybe just because that's the only real time I have to sit and listen to music in a focused way.
Right.
It's really what the music I listen to is, you know, and over the last couple of years, it's been that sort of like, it can't get over a certain threshold of excitement, you know, like it's almost like, it's just like buttoned up. I don't know. I think about Don Williams in the same way. Like that's a great Sunday morning listen. Yeah. Chet Baker, like, I listen to tons of classical stuff. Like, you know, you don't want to necessarily listen to like Mahler first thing in the morning.
right.
But like really chill. I don't know. There's like really chill stuff that I've been obsessed lately with Beethoven's Seventh.
Oh wow.
It's just like this really beautiful somber thing. It gets a little epic, but like songs that like just sort of like are patient and kind to your ears.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand that. To me, it almost seems like, was that even like the idea of using like a nylon string guitar?
Yeah. I mean, I had this little Japanese Fernandez that I was playing a gig in LA and went to that Caveman music store just because I'm a fucking sucker and I can't resist going to a music store. You know, pretty much everywhere I go, I'm like, ooh, what's the guitar shop?
Right.
And I had no intention of buying a guitar, but that one was sitting there. And I sat and played it for probably half an hour, and I was just like, okay, I'm leaving with it. And I already had 2 guitars with me. It was like a fly day. And so I ended up having to pay to check another guitar and bring it home. And it's just a great little classical. It just has a really nice voice. And as soon as I got it, that's kind of when I started writing all the stuff for this record. And I wrote it all on that guitar and then just recorded it all on the same guitar. Pretty much in the same, I don't know, position the whole record. Like we recorded the whole record in like a day, maybe 2 days. And it was just really important to me that perspective was always the same from a recording, you know?
Yeah.
Like it just all should feel like one sitting and you're always in the same place in front of, you know, the music.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was very much like try to get that early morning, late night sort of like feeling. You know, like when I wrote those songs, I was in that tiny apartment in Clarksville trying to not be loud enough to wake up the kids.
Okay, yeah.
What I mean? Like, so it was early morning or late at night, and I was playing at a volume that I knew wouldn't startle anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a firm believer that, like, we make up a bunch of stories about what we intended to do. You know, like, this was going to be this. You have this like lofty conceptual idea of your music after the fact. Like in retrospect, it's easy to say, but actually it's like this confluence of events that all influence each other, like venue, you know.
Sure.
David Byrne has that whole, have you read that How Music Works book?
No.
It's a great read.
Really?
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
And it's not, you know, it's not super technical on music, despite the title. The main theme of this book is that he thinks that the venues that people play music in influence the type of music that is played,
100%.
just as much as the people influence venues. And he cites CBGB as an example. Just the way architecturally the room is constructed, he thinks that is in large part the reason New York rock and roll sounded the way it did from that era. And he gets super heavy into it, like, you know, Gregorian chants, for instance, were made in these large reverberant spaces. So the harmony had to be simple enough that when the note continued to ring over after someone sang, it didn't create chaos from the new note versus the old note ringing over. And I don't know, it's just an interesting theory. And I do think that, the venue for this record is like quiet apartment in the middle of the night or early morning.
Yeah. It's interesting because you sort of like the last record seems to be like your most like electrified feeling record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I do have to say there's like the first 2 songs are like so like it's almost like somebody said, hey, go write a great fucking singer-songwriter, like a 70s singer-songwriter song. Like both of those songs, like the fucking Crazy and When You're Away are unbelievable on that level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I try to make the changes as complicated as possible.
I made I wrote down a note next to when you're away, which is an incredible statement of codependence.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting song. I recorded that originally for this record. It was a band called Traveler, which we call the Stupid Group. It was me and two friends. This guy Johnny Fritz, who's an awesome songwriter, and this other guy Corey Chisel, who's also an awesome songwriter, incredible singer. And we're just buds, and we started writing tunes together, and we're like, we should start a band. And we made a record, and we did one tour, and then we kind of forgot about it. But I wrote that tune for that Traveler record, and I just didn't think enough people heard it. And I was like, I'm gonna put it on Texas Piano Man also.
Yeah.
But very different versions. You know, like the Traveler record is much more like McCartney ballad. You know, like a little slower. I think it's in a lower key. And then with the Texas Piano Man record, it was like I kind of wanted a few of the tunes on that record to feel a little Freaky Friday, like, you know, like kind of like a bit glam, like rock.
Yeah, man. I was trying to like get a concept of you musically, and I had just like your records playing while I was doing stuff in my house on sorry to laugh, on Friday before I left town. And there's a song called Houston. Yeah. Like all of it, you know, I'm doing stuff and I'm hearing you play, and you walk all these different styles, but all of a sudden there's like this, I'm like, did this all of a sudden jump to like a King Crimson fucking playlist or something like that? Because I have a friend that made me a King Crimson playlist because he's trying to get me into prog. Because I just have never had a grasp on prog, and I'm trying to dig it, but I'm having a really hard time like really connecting with it and everything. But when that came on, I was like, did this switch over? Like I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like. And it's weird because in the context of that record, like it goes like right into, I don't know what the next song is, but here, I wrote it, Sing Along.
Yeah, it's a bluegrass, atheist.
Yeah,
bluegrass
which is like
song.
this weird, like it was like such an odd transition to go from like this even in the song, like where it goes like, that's the end of the song of Houston. Like Houston's like a pretty mellow song. Then it goes into like this Pink Floyd thing, and then all of a sudden it turns into like this weird prog thing.
Yeah,
which is great, by the way.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not sure what's wrong with me, but that stuff to me is, I don't know. I tend to have a sense of humor about all of it. Like I find that all of that on paper very funny.
Yes,
you know, but it also is stuff that I enjoy, and like that band at the time, that was a big part of it. So the guitar player on that record is this guy Kelly Doyle, and he's on a lot of the records. He's fucking amazing. Amazing. He's a weirdo country jazzer, you know, like, I don't know, unlike anybody else playing wise. And we got super, you know, we just like on tour, sit and play music all the time in the hotel. We like we both play jazz and like, we'll just sit and play tunes, you know, and we just got to where it was like communication wise, really easy to play together and really fun. And it became, I don't know, we just started pushing further and further out, you know, in the live sets, just like, let's make this more interesting. Let's communicate. And so over the course of that first record tour into that second record tour, it just kind of evolved into this thing where there was a lot more music happening, you know, around the songs. It was kind of like, let's try and capture this when we make the record. And then the drummer on that record, funny enough, is my current business partner in the studio. His name's Josh Block. And at the time, he played drums for this band called White Denim.
I love that band.
Yeah, prog band. And Josh produced and recorded all those early records and was the drummer on all those records. And we just met at a festival. I saw White Denim play and was like, holy fuck, who is that drummer? And he came up to me at my set and he was like, we need to play together. And I was like, I was watching you earlier today and thinking the same thing. And then we just became best friends after that. And he played drums on that record.
Oh, awesome.
So he definitely allowed us to push things a little more out. Yeah. But I don't know. It's this weird confluence of like all Texas people, all with really weird interests You know, we all grew up on country music. We all like it. We all know it. But we also all went to school for jazz in some capacity. We love rock and roll. You know, and this is not a new demographic, I don't think.
No.
You know, like Texas especially has this, I don't know, Bob Wills is a really weird country guy who was obsessed with Charlie Parker.
Right.
You know, he wanted to play jazz.
Right.
Like,
that's what I was going to say is like in your country music, there's passing chords. There's minor ninth chords. You know what I mean? There are chords that aren't just GCD like a strummy guy. Like there's like real shit happening that would happen in like Texas swing and stuff like that.
Well, thank you. I mean, but that's like those fucking nerds were hiding that shit in country music as far back as you know, like like, there's definitely a precedent for. I mean, I don't think Willie Nelson's writing is that different from Cole Porter's writing or something.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's like American Songbook. And like Merle historically had unbelievable jazz players playing with him, you know, like, and I mean, Buck Owens, like that music, Buckaroo is like a fast samba. I don't know. There's just so much there that I think it's easy to romanticize it because I wasn't there, but in my mind, all of those players, they were doing this really neat trick where they were somehow fully in a genre. They were like, oh, this is country, but like they didn't give a shit about any of the, you know, like constraints.
The rules.
Of
Yeah.
the rules. Yeah. You know, like,
yeah.
And now we look at it as prog, you know, progressive country or whatever, but like, it just seems like all of them were playing with everybody else that was playing. And I don't know, it's kind of happening everywhere. Joni Mitchell is like at the same time in the 70s that Willie Nelson is doing Phases and Stages. Joni Mitchell is like doing a record with Michael Brecker and Pat Metheny.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, she wasn't just a folk artist either. Like that, she had that huge, and she played with like Jacko and shit like that, right?
Yeah, he was all over Hajira. I mean, like, Paul Simon, same thing. It's like that record Still Crazy is like
Dude,
the most insane band on the planet.
Your version of that is fucking phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah, great
Thank
job.
you.
Plus, I saw you got to play with him.
That was pretty epic.
Shit.
That was pretty epic. Yeah, that was a nice surprise, which, to his credit, my friend Nathaniel Rateliff, it was his whole thing, and he just invited me along for the ride. But it was pretty epic. And yeah, obviously I'm a huge fan, so I was fucking nervous. And yeah.
One of my best friends just did his new record that's coming out. Do you know Kyle Crusham?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Is he in the like Carm band world, like with CJ Camerari?
Who, Kyle? No.
Yeah.
No, we were in this band Skyrocket together.
Okay.
And he basically started. He did a couple of records with Edie Brickell and New Bohemians, and Paul was hanging out and liked him and was like, hey, why don't you come work on this album with me?
Yeah, that's a whole new level of pressure. I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm a producer. Come, yeah.
It seems like it would be weird, right? Like. Yeah,
totally.
I don't know if he's producing it or if he's engineering it. I don't know.
I mean, Paul seems so, in a really good way, in a way that I understand, very opinionated, So, like, I don't know. He just has a real handle still on what he wants musically out of things.
Right.
And then how to push it into, like, this cool other territory rhythmically.
Yeah.
I don't know. The dude is just so smart. I would imagine producing a record for him is, like, keeping up. Trying to keep up.
Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, also he's been making records for like twice as long as Kyle's been alive.
Yeah.
Like
and
literally twice as long as Kyle's been alive.
And with all of Kyle's heroes.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Did you get to talk to him and stuff?
Yeah. It was 3 days of rehearsing before we did that gig.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty epic. And yeah, he just like, I don't know, he immediately came in and started just making changes and making music. and it was just everything that I had hoped it would be and more, and just really inspiring to see him at this age still giving a fuck deeply about music, and really enjoying music, I just think it's so easy for all of us to it becomes our job, and it just is I got another gig, you show up, you play I don't know. It just is I don't feel that way. I still deeply enjoy it. It's the other shit I don't like.
Yeah.
It's all the other shit. But when the music's happening, I'm like, cool, time stops. I'm just here. I'm very present, no matter what's going on. And it was just cool to see him be in that and just be so fucking generous and captivating. And,
yeah, it's hard to use a tired analogy, when you're in the sausage factory all the time and you're not even tasting the sausage, you're just fucking making it all the time. It's all over you. You got to go home and fucking take a shower and get it off you. It's hard to maintain a relationship with the great taste of the sausage. You know what I mean? When you're in it, But
I don't know. At the same time, I don't know. There's so many facets to this job, as you know. Touring is a part of it, and I'd say for me at least, 95% of touring is a grind.
Yeah,
I don't
awful.
love traveling.
Yeah,
I don't love hotel. I don't like being away from my family. But for 45 minutes to an hour when I'm on stage, I really enjoy that. You know what I mean? That part's great. But we had a band that was just here for the last 12 days. This band called the Little Smokies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a really cool bluegrass group from Montana, really killer players. And we got in the studio the day after I flew home from a tour or something. And immediately after day 2, physically and mentally, there's something about that constant making of music where from morning till night you're just making music.
Yeah.
It gives me more energy.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I would go home every night and be like, I'm going to listen to music now. Now it's it starts the engine.
Yeah.
And when I'm focusing on it and it's all I'm doing, I just feel I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel healthy. I don't know what it is, but I wake up in the morning and I'm ready to go. It's
yeah. Dude, that's
really
good,
weird.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Well, the thing about also, I enjoy being in motion and I enjoy the new things every day, but you don't get to really take stuff in on the road. And sometimes, you can get to a really cool place, but you're so tired, you're just sleeping until your gig, and then you leave after in the morning or something. You know what I mean? It sort of takes the joy out of life.
It does. And people ask about it all the time, and I'd assume you're in the same boat. I'm good at it. I've been doing it now for long enough that I know how to do it. I know how to be in survival mode and be in motion, and I'm a fucking pro at traveling and doing all that.
Yeah.
But if I really step back and look at it, I'm this is not necessarily how I want to be spending my time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish there was a way to just teleport to the show and teleport home.
Well, I mean, in this, in the stuff that I was reading about you, that your publicist sent, that I was looking at it and thinking that the timing of you making this record and sort of leaving your record label, leaving your management, and kind of stripping down this thing, and even just right down to the record is everything. You strip the whole thing back. And I was wondering if that was a decision made during COVID, because I noticed a lot of our friends, even, he didn't do it, but he started to do it. Bob Schneider was quitting his Mondays. During the pandemic, right before everything opened back up, we did one of these together, and he was like, I'm not going back. I'm not doing shit anymore. I'm not going out on the road for weeks at a time. I'm flying out to do a show here, but I'm not getting a bus and spending $10,000 a week just for that. And, on top of that, a band and all this shit. But he immediately went back to it. But a lot of people I know came out of it either doubling down on how much they wanted to do. And then other people were like, what am I doing all the time?
Yeah. an interesting analogy that a friend in the bar business told me, like right when COVID happened, he's like, a lot of these bars are going to have it rough over the next year or whatever. He's like, but I'm looking at this because I'm in a position where I'm able to. I'm looking at it as like, well, we have to be closed, so I'm going to renovate. Like, this is the time to renovate the bar, and then we'll reopen and it'll be better when they let us do it again. And that's kind of how I approach this whole thing. It's just like looking really critically at my business and my music and just trying to figure out like, what's it going to look like when I reopen?
Yeah.
Like what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'd be interested to know if Bob is doing all the shit again that he said he wouldn't do.
Well, he's not doing bus tours like he was doing a couple times a year.
I only say that because now that things are back kind of to normal, at every fucking turn, people are trying to convince me to go back to that broken, fucked up way that it was before. And I mean, it's just like a constant struggle to be like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, like I got it. I don't know. I have a new booking agent, and he is now helping me book tours that are like, they're going to be I just did one this weekend. I flew out Friday morning, played a show Friday night, flew home early Saturday morning so that I could be with my kids on the weekend. Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can, you had to strip back and like, you're doing this stuff by yourself. I mean, is that how you're going to be promoting this record? Is it solo?
Solo or duo. Yeah. Like the whole record is me and an upright bass player, and he might come out on some of these shows. He's this really killer. This is like one of the beautiful things about Fort Worth that I'm realizing. This guy, Aiden Bubeck, lives here, and he was Miranda Lambert's music director for years. He had the Mohawk, played bass, and is just a fucking phenomenal bass player. He also went to school for jazz, and is like he's just as good as it gets musician. And so a lot of the records we produced, he's been coming in and playing bass on them. And he's just, I don't know, he's a great hang. So he played on the whole record with me, and it's just a highly musical dude. And I'm going to see if he'll come out and do some shows with me also. But he's just living in Fort Worth and got off the road with Miranda, is kind of in the same boat I am. Like, loves making music, but doesn't really want to do all the bullshit associated with it. And I don't know. It's just like, I feel like the town has kind of met me where I'm at a little bit.
That's good. Yeah.
There's a lot of people here that are in the same mindset.
Yeah. You know what I like about Fort Worth to me in like Texas, it's as far as like, I mean, Houston's really good with art, but like Fort Worth has a great fucking art scene, man.
They didn't close the Modern like all through the pandemic. I was there twice a week with my oldest son.
Oh, awesome.
Like we had a membership and it would be empty. Nobody was in there. And we would just go look at fucking Rothko's and like, they were still bringing in new, exhibits like through the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
So
how old is your son? How old was your
4.5? 4.5 now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then my youngest is 1.5.
So I was going to say it's pretty young to be laying Rothko on him.
He loves it. I mean, I think they just take for granted whatever you give them.
Yeah.
It's just time to hang out with dad.
Yeah.
And we'd just go stare at paintings and, I don't know. It's the same with music. I took him the other night to see Dawes. Do you know that band?
Yeah, I love that band.
Yeah, they're so good. And I've known them for years. Like when we were in our early 20s, we toured together and just became buds. And I took Buddy to their show in Dallas the other night. And I had to fly out super early the next morning, so we didn't even get to say hi. But we sat and watched the show, and Buddy just sat silently and watched the whole fucking show. And afterwards I was like, what'd you think? And he was like, I really liked it. But I could see like all of these wheels turning. It's kind of the first time that he has just sat and watched something for an hour, like without saying anything, and he would like move his head and he'd sing along. Like when he got the hook or the chorus down after they repeated it a couple times, I'd see him start to sing, but like, he wasn't like asking me a ton of questions. I don't know. It was just a different experience, and he left there kind of different. I could see.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you first connected with music to the point where it was gonna like it became the dream?
I was like, I'm that weird kid who was doing it. I can't remember not playing. You know, like my mom was a piano player, and I just was in my family and in my house, and like I was a baby, you know, ostensibly when I started playing.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of always, I think maybe in elementary school like the Chicago Bulls were really big. And I think in elementary school, I wanted to be a basketball player, which is, you know, I'm glad I didn't go try that.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I don't remember ever saying I wanted to do anything else.
Wow.
You know? But I also sampled, you know, like my mother played and taught, and my uncle was a phenomenal bluegrass guitar player and dobro player, and he played in a bunch of bands.
Did your mom play out? Like, did she play shows and stuff?
She played at church.
Oh, cool.
She played at church every Sunday, and then she was also in the local community college jazz band when I was little. So she played jazz. And yeah, I don't know. She just like, at home, my room was next to her lesson studio. Okay. You know, so it was just kind of constant.
You were getting lessons subconsciously the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school for jazz?
Well, that's interesting. I dropped out of high school.
Okay.
So right after freshman year, I was just kind of like, fuck this. I'm going to play music professionally. This is a waste of time. And I dropped out of high school. And then the community college where my mom went, this really awesome guy leads the jazz program there. His name's Richard Burke. And he, I enrolled and went and played in the jazz band there for a couple semesters. And then shortly thereafter, I was like, well, I'm probably not going to do college either. And so I went to Houston and, and I just started kind of playing. And, cause yeah, where I grew up is about an hour south of Houston. So
where is that? Lake Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Houston proper and just started playing. And
where were you playing there?
Where?
Yeah, what places?
Kind of all over. I moved there because I wanted to play jazz. So like when I first got there, I was playing just jazz guitar gigs. And then I started doing, you know, my kind of singer-songwriter stuff. We had a weekly gig for like 2 years running that was at a couple different places. I'm sorry, can I ask, are you vaping tobacco or weed?
Tobacco.
Okay.
Is that bad?
No, it's awesome. I was just going to say, if it was weed, then I don't know how you wouldn't be like fucking insanely baked right now.
Oh, yeah, because I've been doing it the whole time. Yeah. You watch me devolve the psychic devolution of Johnny.
Yeah, the first couple times I was like, maybe he's just taking a hit.
What made you decide on just a mustache, man?
Oh,
No, I'm just joking. That's my, as I get stoneder, that's what my questions become.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, totally.
So what kind of places were you playing in Houston that were jazz places?
Well, I mean, funny gigs. I played like it's a Houston scene. It's a big city, so like, and the jazz scene still it's kind of rough, you know, unless you're like winning Grammys and you're Robert Glasper or somebody like,
right.
You know, so like I remember playing guitar at this gig at Finnegan's in the Galleria, which is like the mall there.
Yeah.
And you know, like those kind of things, like little like weddings or parties or whatever, just gigs. And I still do some of that, you know, it's more few and far between now, but like jazz gigs, like they have a jazz combo play at Central Market every week.
Yeah, or like at the Four Seasons during happy hour or something.
Totally.
Let me ask you this: what years were those? Because what years were those?
It would be. I would have graduated in 07, so around there.
Okay. So there weren't guys guys like Kirk Whalum and Harry Shepard. Were they still happening there?
Yeah.
And was Cody's still a place?
I never went to Cody's.
Okay.
No, it was like Saison was one of the jazz clubs there.
Okay.
And the Red Cat was a cool place.
Those are all places after my time there. Yeah. Okay. So
did you live there? You lived there for a bit?
I lived there from like 87 to 91.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if either of us went back now, neither of us would recognize it.
No, I go there all the time. I actually just played Last Concert Cafe on Friday.
Cool.
Yeah, I like
Man,
that place.
they're starting to do shows there again.
Yeah,
Like,
big shows.
I've been seeing a bunch of friends get booked there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a blast from the past because I saw some really cool shows there, and then for a time it was like very drum circle insanity
Right. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not really like ticketed shows. Like it wouldn't have been a place that I would play, but I've been seeing bands come back through and actually do shows there again, which is heartening.
There's a thing, and the sound guy, the house sound guy, caught me and the bass player kind of laughing at the lineup for 420 that they have. We were looking at it, and it starts with like a drum circle and then like a Freedom Jam or whatever.
I love it so much. I can picture it. You know, like that's such a cool scene. I'm so glad you know about that place. That's like
it's funny.
Hard to even explain.
When I lived there, I was managed by Fitzgerald's. Like they started a management company in the late '80s and had a couple bands on their roster, and I was in one of them.
That's so crazy. Okay, so the weekly gig that I did in Houston for years started out at this little Mexican restaurant called Mango's, and then it kind of it was just luck, dumb luck, but it got fucking huge. It went from like being nobody there to being like 500 people a week, on a Wednesday night showing up to these free shows we were doing. And then a buddy of mine had the Free Press. He owned the Houston Free Press.
Yeah.
And they took over Fitzgerald. They either bought it or leased it from Sarah.
Uh-huh.
And when that happened, they asked me to move my weekly there. So when we reopened Fitzgerald, I did a weekly at Fitz for like, I don't know, a year and a half, almost 2 years probably.
God, downstairs or upstairs?
Both. We started downstairs, and
worked your way
it
up?
would depend.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they first reopened it under new management or whatever, there was a big sign on the side that said Robert Ellis every Wednesday. Like that was really like our stomping ground.
Wow. Yeah, I was playing there during that time too. But I remember Sarah being around there during that. She was still there, right?
I don't know what her role was. I know she continued to own the building because after Free Press left and Pegstar, they like opened this other venue over there. I think she started doing shows again, and then I don't know if you've heard, but it's been demolished. Now it's some fucking hot tub.
My band was the last band. My band was the last
Really?
band. Yeah, the last band.
Oh,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is now, but yeah, last time I went, I drove by and I was like, wow, gone. But that's an interesting venue. So my mom had a T-shirt from the 80s where she saw Stevie Ray Vaughan there.
Right, yeah.
She like gave it to me, and I thought it was the coolest fucking thing. And I remember her talking about Fitzgerald, in its heyday.
Yeah.
And then like it was a big thing for me to like have a weekly there and be playing there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, when they managed us going there and just even like that was like 1989 or something, but like just going through the like sitting in the office in my manager's office and like going through old stuff of theirs, like dude, James Brown played there, like so many people played there that just would blow your mind.
Yeah, it's a total shame that it's gone.
Yeah, it is gone. At least it's a parking lot though, because they really needed just some asphalt parking.
Yeah, totally. For the fucking biscuit restaurant.
Yeah. So, man, we digress into a Houston thing. So, I want to touch a little bit more on this record because it's so beautiful. There's singles out that people can hear now. Close Your Eyes, Yesterday's News, and Gene. Those are all available. But this record, you did it live, and you did it all on one microphone. Even the bass is what I read. That guy. What was that microphone?
Well, some of it, we started by close micing the bass, and we were going to just do a pretty traditional, like 2 microphones, vocal and guitar, and then one on the bass. And then as we started pulling stuff up, just to reference and see where we were, I was like, man, the vocal setup at the studio is pretty nasty. We got some insane mics. The main mic on that record is this Church 47. which is just like, it's a U-47 that was modified. He made 100 of them basically, and it's just got a different housing and I believe a different transformer. But it's just a really special mic and kind of just sounds great on everything. And it's really rare and amazing. And so that was a big part of the sound of the record. And yeah, as we started pulling up the tracks and listening, I was like, man, the bass sounds so good through the church. Like, why don't we just spend some time playing with where he's standing and just get him in the same, just everything kind of in the same mic, which it doesn't have a polar pattern on that mic. It's just kind of one thing. So it picks up a lot of, what's happening in the room. And I feel like, I don't know, there's just a really cool dimension on that record to me because it's
totally
just like
yeah.
where we're standing.
Yeah.
You're hearing where we're standing in a cool way. And
yeah.
there's so much sympathetic frequency. And we also didn't use headphones. So a part of the calculation was we're playing super fucking quiet. We want to be able to hear each other. We're not using headphones, and we want to hit the mics at hopefully respective volumes because we're not going to be able to mix this really.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. I'm a firm believer with all the stuff that we work on, like you're going to do the work somewhere. And if you spend the time at the beginning getting things right and making sure that just the way you're doing it is right, it takes a lot more time at the beginning. It's a little more stressful, but then you can just set up and play. And that's kind of what happened. We spent the whole half day just like working on how it was going to sound. We went through 3 different tape machines before finally doing a very convoluted signal path. We have this beautiful Ampex 3 channel that we wanted to run everything through. And then it was kind of buzzy, but we really liked the pre's on it. They sounded really cool. And one of the channels just wasn't acting right. So we ended up going through the Ampex into the MCI 16, which is a much more functional machine.
Right.
And so we ran 3 channels in, 3 channels out. We tracked to the MCI. And then for whatever reason, because it had been working totally fine up until that day, but something was fucked up on the heads that day. So there is a fair amount of warble in that record that I actually love now.
Yeah.
But as we were tracking, we were panicking a bit, and we're like, well, fuck it, let's just leave it. And there's a few spots in the record where you hear it like,
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just sounds. That's what I want to hear, because that's sort of like the thing that the thing that I feel detached from a lot of modern recordings is there's the humanity is being sucked out of it, and I didn't realize what a sucker for humanity I was, like. The human element of communication and people, working something out in real time together. And these recordings at one point would capture magic, which is what this record does, even on like one microphone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's all about surprise, like all of it. It's about excitement and surprise, and the gear used to be a part of that calculation.
Yeah.
It was performing too,
right.
The way that, I don't know, the way that those old microphones react to Frank Sinatra's voice
exactly.
is a part of the performance.
Exactly right. Yeah.
They thin out when he moves back.
Yeah.
And like when he's at this angle, they say, I don't know, just all that shit is so interesting to me. And it's what I love about music too. But for me, it's always just like intrigue and surprise. It's like, I want to listen to something and be like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
Like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
And again, to what we were saying earlier, I feel like everyone has a fair amount of like certitude and confidence about what they intended to happen and like why they made things a certain way. But I'm way more interested in the accidents,
right?
And like the things that just happened, and we're like, yeah, it was fucking cool. I love it. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I can't take credit for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, is I feel like sort of the modern method of recording, which I don't think is bad. It just doesn't suit my taste as much as that, that kind of stuff is just, that's not what they're reaching for.
No.
They're reaching for something else in those situations.
I don't want to get too philosophical, but I think that's a larger symptom of just like society and people honestly. Like, I don't know. If you think about it, the music that most people want to make and the music that most people want to consume it gives you the illusion that things are in control, like that we've got it in control. Like every part is perfectly fixed. Everything's fixed. It's all right. Everything's right. And it sounds right. And I don't know, for me, I think there's some like subconscious stuff happening there, where
Right.
like, that's not what we want. Maybe that's because of our worldview. Like, I just don't believe that that's real.
Right.
Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, it probably is. Like, if you look back, I don't know what kind of a student of history you are, but like, if you look back, there's this historian named Paul Johnson. He's slightly like conservative, not really the point of view that I would go with, but he wrote this book. I believe it's called Modern Times, but I read it like 20 something years ago. My grandfather gave it to me. And there was a really fascinating part when he got into like the 20s, like the 1920s, going through everything that was affecting each other from from what Carl Jung and Freud were doing, was sort of setting off this artistic movement, the Dada movement. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this moves into this architectural movement. And then all of a sudden you see these composers composing music that reflects that as well. You know what I mean? Like the whole society is just like in this interlocked and reacting to each other.
Yep.
On all aspects.
It's still happening.
Yeah, it is still happening. And what you just explained scared me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not lost on me that there's a parallel between like getting the perfect Instagram filter and angle and making everything that you do be so highly curated that it's not even fucking you. You're
Right.
just creating a product. Like that's the same thing that people want to do with music.
Right.
And I think that comes out of deep insecurity. Like at least on the music side, it's like I wrote this, but I'm not good enough to do it. Like I'm not enough. We have to make this all perfect, and we have to add all this extra shit to it.
Right.
We have to make it sound loud and compelling. And it's like I don't know. I want to hear people just like I want to hear just people, just who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because having this conversation, there's an element to your career. If, like taking in your entire music career in like a week is pretty like it's really interesting because you really are like, oh wow, this guy went from here to here. You know what I mean? Like if I was a fan from the beginning and I was just getting the new album, I wouldn't really look at it like that, right? Yeah. So I feel like there's this sort of like there's a couple of things I wanted to say. There's like an element, and I don't mean musically, but like philosophically, like David Bowie, like you can move fluidly through genres and it's still Robert Ellis making music. And that's sort of the definition, I think, that you've sort of defined yourself. Like, I'm a creator of music. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be the bluegrass. It could be King Crimson vibe. I don't know what's going to happen to you right now. You know what I mean?
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because that sort of thing, you're setting out to really against whatever sort of like guidelines they give you to have a successful commercial career. And even right down to making this record now in your career on the heels of Texas Piano Man is like, I mean, if I was your manager, I might be like, what are you doing, dude? Come on. We just got everyone dancing. What are you going to go play fucking listening rooms now? Come on, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like to do that and to do it so, there's no pretense. There's no, like in all of the things that you do, you're not faking doing it. Even when you're wearing like a white suit or like a nudie suit or something, like you're not faking it. You know how to entertain people and the sort of like underlying thing that I got from you and your creative thing is that it's organic and you are just expressing, you know what I mean? And I like the song that comes out of you, all the different styles of it. Like it agrees with me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to be honest. I don't know. That's been my guiding light with all this stuff. It's like my first record on New West was called Photographs.
Yeah.
Like, like the whole, in that time, I was just thinking of like, okay, this record should just be a picture of what's happening right now,
Right.
And we're doing, at the time, that's when we were doing that Fitzgerald's Weekly thing, and we were playing country music every Wednesday. And I was also writing these singer-songwriter tunes, and that record is like a concept album split over A-side and B-side. The A-side's very folk, the B-side's very country.
Right.
And the whole thing, at the time, I was just like, I just want to take a picture of everything that's happening right now and put it down on a record.
Right.
And like, that's kind of been my guiding principle through all this. Is like, yeah, this touring season is not going to be as fun as the Texas Piano Man touring season was. Like, it's just a different kind of show.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have a dozen roses and, be drinking champagne every night, like to a large rock and roll crowd.
Spraying Topo Chico on the audience.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
But it's a season, and it's where I'm at. And I don't know. I don't know what the next one's going to be. Like, it's definitely, this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Still.
I believe that from you as an artist. Like, even if you came out with something that was leaning towards something people haven't heard from you, like some synthesizer record.
Yeah.
Not that would be bad, but I wouldn't be shocked. I wanted to point something out at how you've grown as an artist, and I got like trying to use like the Jedi metaphor. Talking about that record, Photographs, that opens like the record, that song. Eventually, the band kicks in, but it starts off with you playing, I believe, what's a nylon string guitar. It sounds like it. Are you on that song?
Maybe, yeah.
And it's just you singing. But that guy singing that is definitely like Luke Skywalker in the first Star Wars, and then the guy playing now is like entering the Obi-Wan phase. Like, seriously, go back and listen to Gene and listen to that first song on Photographs. Like, the execution of your sing, like you're singing louder when you don't, like, after you listen to yesterday's news and you go back and listen to that, you're like, why is he singing so loud when it's just him playing the guitar?
Yeah.
You hadn't gotten to that level of confidence yet, which is amazing. Anybody who hasn't heard you that's listening to this should go really spend a week just listening to your whole catalog, and it's really fun.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
That shit is, sometimes I'm like, and I wish that everything, in one way I'm thankful for it, but looking back on old records, I'm also like, when you were 17, 18, whatever you were doing is just like, about it. Maybe your friends know about it. Mine is like recorded on record.
Oh, dude, you don't even know. Like, I'm 54 years old, and I mean, I have a photo back here of my first gig, like playing at 14 years old in my friend's living room. Like, if I would have been 14 in like 2010, that would have been like on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, I thank God it's just pictures, and you don't have to like listen to the shit you were doing then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky for that. I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm really glad. Not even like the band that Fitzgerald's managed. Like, every once in a while, I'll be like, oh God, that's not out there, because that was like a funk band. And I think the last thing anything wants to hear from me is funk. But
I love that so much. It's probably out there somewhere. I bet you there's like one random video.
No.
No. Wow.
No, and I've looked for it.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll be like, I wonder if there's any kind of thing out there of us, but there's not. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel, I mean, it's a positive, because I'm like, my fucking Wikipedia page, as far as I know, still has a picture from 15 years ago on it, and like still has. I mean, like, they haven't updated anything in the last 6 records, as far as I can tell.
Oh, right. The long-haired version of you.
Yeah, like that kind of shit. And YouTube, like, if someone were like, oh, I just heard about this guy, and goes and searches YouTube, like,
oh.
Like,
okay, so, dude, last night I was watching all these videos on YouTube, and when you do search it's your videos interspersed with this weird old guy that's like a vaping guy. Yeah.
The vape guy. Yeah,
the vape guy.
He's awesome. I've been hitting him up. I want him to do he does vape reviews. I want him to review the record. and pair it with a vape.
Dude, that would be awesome.
It'd be great.
Yeah, that's brilliant,
I
man.
see shit like that. There's also a best-selling author named Robert Ellis. He writes like crime noir.
Oh, nice.
And he's really great. And this is part of the reason management has changed and things. I'm a little crazy, and I think things are really funny. And so when they were like on the self-titled record, they were like, we need to get a bio written. I was like, I want Robert Ellis to write my bio. the best-selling crime writer. And they were like, how about this music journalist from blah, blah, blah? And I was like, no, I think we get Robert Ellis. I think it's funny.
Did you?
And I did. I reached out to him, and we became buds. And he was fucking awesome. We had like an hour-long conversation. Turns out he's super into music, and he wrote a really compelling bio. And at the bottom it says, written by Robert Ellis, the best-selling author, not the musician.
Well, in that case, like being an unconventional artist like you are, those sort of like, like the label guys' ideas of what's cool is like a weird, like somewhere across between like your aunt and like somebody that has no idea about how someone wants to be viewed as a musician, Yeah. You get good at just being like, oh, cool idea. And I'm going to continue to do whatever the crazy thing that I just thought of is. Yeah, no shit. There was another question I was going to ask you when we were talking about the one microphone thing. As a producer, have you ever recorded a band around one microphone?
Well, we do a lot of stuff. So our studio, do you have a second?
Yeah.
Hang on. Just come with me. I've got a thing here shortly. So the bar is in the same building.
Oh, how cool.
As the studio. So this is a big part of the reason we wanted to get this place. And dude, you're going to definitely, I'm going to hit you up when we get off. There's going to be a live music venue, outside space and inside space. And it's in the same building as the studio. And I really want this whole building to just be like music.
Yeah.
Like music sort of capital. That's the goal.
Do you know Bale Allen at all?
I do.
Yeah.
I love Bale.
He moved up there.
Yeah. His art studio is like 3 blocks from this building.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's just right down the road.
I love that guy.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
And he has invited me to every single gallery opening over the last 6 months, and I have not been able to make it to any of them just for travel or work or whatever.
Yeah.
And then through the windows we can see the band. But all of this is a very convoluted answer to your question. Like when we have bands in here, the majority of the records we do, we don't have any ISO booths, so everybody's in the same room.
Yeah.
And we do what we can to manage reflections, with these gobos, but like bleed is a huge part of the sound of all the records we do.
Sure.
So like this bluegrass band that was just in here last week, we had 5 people sitting in sort of a semicircle, and we had some closed mics on people, but the majority of the sound is just these AEA 88s that we put in between everyone, sort of like, well, because of the way they wanted to sit, it wasn't Blumline, but like the idea being like the way you'd capture a string section.
Yeah.
Just like getting all that sympathetic stuff between the players. Like that's kind of the vibe. And again, we spent forever just getting sounds before we ever recorded anything. And yeah, I mean, to me, that's the coolest part of it. And you end up just like getting everything set up, putting a shitload of awesome mics in front of people, and then like writing up the fader on one of them, being like, well, this is kind of the sound of the whole band.
Yeah, totally.
This one sounds awesome.
Yeah. Do you know that the guy Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket?
I don't think we know each other. I know that band.
He did. I did one of these with him, and he had just done a record where they had done it with some stereo mic, and they, spent a day getting everyone situated around it, and it was like maybe 5 or 6 people playing, and
Yeah.
just all around one mic and doing it. It's a phenomenal sounding record and feeling record. Like it felt great. Like,
I love that shit.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, my partner Josh is he's just a genius engineer, and like he's definitely he's been on this mindset now for years and years. And I moved here, and as we started working together on stuff, I definitely am like, oh, I see, I get why you like. He built this room for this purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything about it is designed to force people to play together live and
Yeah.
have a fucking
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Dude, this has been great talking to you. And really digging into your music has been such a treat. You're a phenomenal musician and songwriter.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, and thanks for waking up early. And
No problem. I'm an early riser too. When I got the email like, hey, you can do it at like 9 any morning, I was like, all right.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, this is when I'm at my best.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Before I vaped pot all day.
Well, dude, please come visit. I'll send you an email when we get off.
Okay,
And let's hang.
definitely, man. Likewise, I'd love to meet in person and hang out.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you so much for doing the show. And this record, Yesterday's News, people can get out and check out these singles. They're absolutely gorgeous, and go listen to it all. Thanks so much for doing the show, and I'll talk to you soon, man. We'll stay in touch.
I'll see you soon. Bye.
Good meeting you, brother. Bye.
The only way that I know.
That was the amazing Robert Ellis. His new album, Yesterday's News, drops May 19th. The singles, Close Your Eyes, Yesterday's News, and Gene are all available now wherever it is you find your music. But Get Yesterday's News comes out on May 19th. I want to thank Robert for doing the show. I really had a great time talking to him. He's such a cool guy and such an amazing and inspiring musician. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Hey, gang, don't forget when you're out there checking out Robert Ellis online, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere. New shows every Tuesday and every Friday. We drop From the Vault episodes on Saturdays. I'll let you in. The Eric Johnson talk comes out this Saturday from the Vault. I can't remember what episode it is, but it'll be dropping again on Saturday. All right. Thanks so much for listening to the show. I hope you guys all have a really great week. Once again, Robert Ellis, what an amazing artist. Let's get down.
Then gone like the dew. I'd only begun yesterday's news. The world in the palm of my hand. Thought I'd found a pearl, but inside only sand. My best days are gone. I feel empty and used. Got nothing left to lose. Yesterday's news. Somewhere I hear 'em laughing. Applause, applause, all for you. The same old joke. Who knows the ending? Well, I do. When you left me behind, I had no place to go. There's ever a time when you feel in the mood, you'll know where to find yesterday's news. Now don't be surprised when it happens to you. Set up to lose yesterday's news.